Well. Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm Dave Butler.
I'm Stephan Taeger.
Welcome to the Good News Podcast Revival. Something I missed all those names up. But Revival, the Good News Podcast is what I meant to say at the beginning. Ooh, it's going to be a day. I already feel it. This podcast is sponsored by, who do you wish it was sponsored by? Let's do fake sponsorships every single episode.
Oh, man. Barber.
Oh my gosh, you guys, please go down a rabbit hole with Stephan on his barber jackets. He's so fancy. He just like has a vibe of the royal family of England.
Oh, man.
Are you sad it's springtime and you can't wear it anymore?
I am a little bit.
November will come again.
And I'll get to wax it this fall.
My word.
And I'm really excited about it.
Okay, you guys, go look up barber jackets if you're into that kind of thing. If it's your first time, we drop an episode every Tuesday because it's the day of double blessings, and we talk about the good news. There's this verse I was just reading recently in the Book of Mormon. If you are not a Latter-day Saint, unfamiliar with the Book of Mormon, it's an additional book of scripture that Latter-day Saints study and read. It's essentially another story of Jesus, collection of stories of Jesus in a different location. So it's a companion to the Bible. But I was reading it, and there's a line in there about being swallowed up in the joy. That's what the line is used. And that's our hope with the podcast. It's like, there's a lot of questions. There can be a lot of doubts. There can be a lot of things that can be discouraging about church life. And we kind of just want to recenter every week on like the thrill of faith, get swallowed up in the joy, and face all those questions and doubts and worries and wonders in the context of an overwhelming like sense of goodness of God. So we use conference talks as our baseline, trampoline. I don't know, for some reason I love thinking they're a trampoline. You just keep bouncing back to it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then we could do tricks. We could do double bounces.
Do you have a trampoline at your house, Dave?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you go on it with your kids? Do you jump on the trampoline?
Yes.
Can you do a backflip? Can you?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Now I'm working on a standing back tuck on a like just on the floor.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank
How
you.
old are you?
What? Mind your business. Just kidding. I'm 40 something. I was born in 1981. I can never do the math or remember, but I might be the first 40 something year old to do a back tuck in America. So today our talk is Elder Bowen from Saturday evening, Miracles, Angels, Priesthood Power. P.S. We pick our 3 best headlines from the talk, the good news headlines. We're like a newspaper company, and that's the kind of the structure. So Stephan always goes first because he's so bossy and cuts in line. So go ahead.
That's my nature.
Yeah.
Okay, this is called Miracles, Angels, and Priesthood Power. This talk has a lot of pretty dramatic manifestations of the hand of God. And I'm going to save that for my last one, talking about that. But early on in the talk, he talks about being put in prison as a missionary. Were you ever arrested as a missionary?
I don't think so. Nope. Scan my memory for a second.
And he's put in prison, and he's, obviously very worried, very concerned. And he says he remembers his patriarchal blessing. And then this is what Elder Bowen says. In it, God promised me that through my faithfulness, I would be able to be sealed in the temple for time and eternity to a woman full of beauty and virtue and love, that we would become the parents of precious sons and daughters, and that I would be blessed and magnified as a father in Israel. Those inspired words about my future filled my soul with peace. Here's the good news from this headline, is that God makes promises and he keeps them. So one thing we can do is to go through our patriarchal blessings, and we can also go through the scriptures specifically related to covenants and identify the promises that God has made towards us and the ones that we can put our faith into. I genuinely believe that a lot of faithful people have the faith required to move a mountain. But what they don't have often is just the promise, is the permission. What promises do is they give us the direction of what we can put our faith into. And those promises are beautiful, and there's many of them, and they actually give us a sense of where we can place our faith, where we can direct it.
That's really, really good stuff.
Well, thank you.
I really want to just bite into all that. That was like, yeah, you have the faith to move a mountain, but what you don't have is like where to focus that faith on.
Right.
That it just is, it's not on your personal whims, but on the promises of God.
Right.
And don't be sad about that, because I bet his promises are more outlandish than your wishes are.
No question.
You know,
Yeah.
like it's like, oh, I would say anybody who has a wish or a desire or a hope, I would say it's not big enough. That's actually why you want God's word on it.
Right.
And why has no one ever called him the promise keeper as one of his names? Like Isaiah, come on, you wrote like 60 some odd chapters. You nowhere in there you want to call him the promise keeper, which maybe it goes into my number 3, which is the very last line he gives is, I witness miracles have not ceased. Angels are among us and the heavens are open. And then this line is my favorite. First of all, those are just spectacular. I want to live in that realm of believing that there is a such thing as angels. Anyways, right? There is a such thing as miracles in this world. Like you don't have to live in the mundane of mortality that just like you can live believing those things. But the line I loved most was after, and oh, how open they are. He says the heavens are open and oh, how open they are. And God is not a stingy giver. He is so liberal. And when it says the windows of heaven are open, we're talking about them big fancy windows, you know, in like skylights. We're talking skylights. We're not talking like the little bathroom window that you have in your you know, above the toilet or whatever. It's such good news to believe in a God who like pours out and opens up the power of heaven so very, very wide, like in a stunning manner. Like I always want to believe that.
Yeah, I think if there's anything at the heart of our tradition, at the center of it, is the idea that God is radically blessing and opening the windows of heaven, and there's miracles again on the earth. Of course, a lot of faith traditions talk about that and emphasize that.
As they should, because he's pouring out miracles and sending angels
all people.
All people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
It's just so stunning because every person that you meet now, you could, if you became good enough friends, discover one more story of how big and good God is. Because like everybody has one. Everybody has multiple. That's how open it is. Yeah. That's why we have open mic Sunday, you know, on that first Sunday.
Which
is like, tell us, convince us, witness. Miracles have not ceased. The angels are among us and the heavens are open.
You talk about a democratization of Christianity. Once a week in our tradition, once a month in our tradition.
I don't even know what that phrase is you just said to me.
It just means like our tradition is really not about a superstar in the ward. It's about all of us sharing in responsibility. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I interviewed my bishop for a temple recommend. Like he's my old bishop, right?
Yeah.
And I was just like, how cool is this that we take turns sharing in these responsibilities?
I got you. That's fun.
But once a month, we have the opportunity to share the miracles that we've seen, right? And everyone gets to say, hey, this is how I've seen.
And what they believe.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
So awesome.
All right, here's my number 2. I testify that miracles and ministrations are continually occurring in our lives, often as a direct result of priesthood power. President Kimball taught that God does watch over us and notice us, but the way he often does it is through other people. And so, yes, there are lots of ways that God ministers to us, but I think here's the good news. Is that one of the most common ways that he does this, according to President Kimball, is through the kindness and love of other people. And I think as Christians, one of our jobs is to be good at receiving that grace, to be open to it. So when a little child smiles at us, or when a friend helps us out, or whatever it may be, we have to get really good at fully embracing that and fully receiving it, and gratitude and receiving that grace that comes our way. Why? Because that will soften our heart. That will make life joyful. One of the quickest ways to break out of our despair and our worry is to simply receive the goodness of God as it comes through other people.
Whoa. Stephan, you're on a roll.
Oh, thank you. That's
today.
Really, that's so
you're
nice
2 for 2. Usually you're only 1 for 3, like with the podcast. Just kidding.
We'll give credit to Elder Bowen. You know, it's his talk.
Well, I just really, really love that. And I'm just noticing that the one headline, I guess, over this entire thing is just like, man, well, I won't give it away. I think that might be my number 1.
Can I ask you a question really quick?
Yeah.
I don't know. This is so random, but can you think of a simple act of kindness you've received recently from someone that just softened your heart or helped? Or
wow, this is actually feels so funny, but I was just up at this. So I love this organization called HXP, and they take teenagers on humanitarian trips, and I just try to get as involved as I can. I can just bully myself into the organization. because I just love it. I love the work that's happening. We just had a weekend of training all of the trip leaders, all the ones that, well, like there's 2 kind of counselors for every trip that go out. And so they all came together for this big training weekend, and I was up there for it. I kind of felt like I was living in a little slice of heaven while I was there. And when you just said that, I was like, part of it was because of so many deliberate acts of kindness were happening. Like from those who organized the event, it was way more about making each trip leader who came felt seen and just unique and loved,
Yeah.
in their particulars,
Yeah.
but also spontaneous ones. And one of them I was a recipient of, where like I just had mentioned something about like, this is so stupid to say. So like talking about like how like simple it was, but I actually like genuinely loved it. There's those new Dr. Peppers that are the like coconut cream Dr. Peppers are limited edition right now. Just so you know, that's why we're sponsored this video. And I hadn't tried one yet, and I keep wanting to try one. And I said something about it, and this girl was like, "Oh my gosh, I have one in my backpack." Like she was saving it for later, and she was like, "You should really have it. Like I want you to try it. I want to see the first time you try this." She was like, "I've already had one before," and I was like, "Wait, for real?" But it was just par for the entire weekend of just like, I was like, wow, there is just something about just loving people really well and being extra good to people that creates just a heavenly experience. It genuinely did. My heart was so tender the entire weekend. And I think that's one of the contributing factors.
Yeah, it's funny. I got that principle, like a lot of what I teach from Terry Warner in his book, Bonds That Make Us Free. And he talks about one of the ways to get out of sort of self-deception is to receive the goodness of others. And the example he gives is being on the highway and this woman letting him kind of cut into a lane or something like that.
Yeah.
And so this all just to show that God's goodness is in the smallest details. And we can receive that all day long, day long. Right.
So rad. All right. I realized that my number 2, just looking down, was exactly what your number 1 was, because obviously I was into that promise keeper because it was that, but God keeps all of his promises always. You already did that, but don't worry. I have a backup, a bonus. And
so this is your number 2, right?
This is my number 2. Okay. This is my number 2, where he just says this line when you were talking about that story of him in jail. It's this line that the seeds of help have been planted many years earlier. And that's when he goes into that patriarchal blessing. And I just am this is why I wrote in my little margins here about Moses, baby Moses in the basket, I have this little picture of baby Moses in a basket in the river. And
like in your house?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a painting of it. And I love it because I imagine in the background of that painting are the children of Israel as slaves in Egypt, begging God for deliverance. And some of them tempted to think that he'd forgotten them or isn't hearing them, unaware that the deliverance story has already begun. The baby's already in the basket. Like it will be another 80 years, but he already started it. And it's fascinating to me that he pleads for help in that prison. And it was there in jail that he realized 10 years ago, God already began answering this prayer. Like he planted the hope and the faith I would need 10 years ago. And I love believing in a God who's like that, who just like, he's always on the move. And he's been on the move a decade before you even cried out for help.
It's amazing. That's good. Man, Elder Bowen's Talk brought to you by Barber and Dr. Pepper.
You were calling
just
me
kidding.
Barber at first. I was like, you forgot my name. What are you doing?
Oh, man. Okay.
They better seriously send us some some merch after this. This was good stuff. And they sponsored it by our free will and choice.
Oh, man.
Okay. Oh, we're on your number 1, baby.
This is my number 1. Okay. Elder Bowen tells quite the powerful and frankly dramatic story of him driving in a van and the van tipping over.
It's terrible.
And it's just every parent's worst nightmare. One of their daughters, Emily, is under the van. And miraculously, she's, helped and healed and grows up and has her own family. As the van is on top of their baby Emily or their daughter Emily, they're able to lift up the van. And this is what he writes. Those who lifted the van off of Emily observed that the van seemed to weigh nothing. I knew that heavenly angels had joined with earthly angels to lift the vehicle off of Emily's body. I also know that Emily was brought back to life by the power of the holy priesthood. Often in the church, and we talk about the little tiny miracles, but I want to testify that there are big miracles, that there are occasionally dramatic moments where God shows his hand. And yes, most often it's the small, visible acts of his kindness and love. But we believe in a God of big miracles. One simple way to apply this good news is to collect those big miracles. Yes, you should collect the small ones, right, as well. Think about those.
Yeah.
But if you look through family histories, if you listen to people who have been on this earth for a while, and sometimes not just people who have been here on the earth for a long time, others, they'll have sacred experiences where they've seen the hand of God in dramatic and obvious ways. And that's true, and that's real. I'm a man of the academy. I'm a professor, right? I believe in reason and evidence. But first and foremost, I believe in a God who performs dramatic miracles.
And I think there's something really sweet about believing in both of those.
Yeah.
I want to believe that God will leave a heads up penny for you. You know, like I want to believe in those little miracles that happen. But I also do want to believe in the times where he will show off. And to believe that in his bigness and in his intimacy at the same time, I think is a greater and more beautiful picture about who he is. Like he meets Moses and talks to him and shows him a vision of wide expanse of the universe he created. But also at the same time, he's talking one-on-one with him. I love that he provides that kind of teaching moment for him that says, I am bigger than you ever imagined. In your wildest dreams,
Right.
They haven't scratched the surface of what I'm capable of, how big my ability is, my power is, and how big my love is. But I'm telling you this one-on-one in the middle of the desert or wherever they are, you know?
Right.
God is big, but not too big for you. I love having those two together, which maybe is sort of I don't even know how to quite express my number one, which essentially is the concept of this whole talk, what you just said. In paragraph 18, if you have those numbered, when he quotes President Nelson and talks about this work that we're engaged in. And he says, it's a work of miracles attended by angels. It is the work of heaven. Heaven sometimes feels like a faraway place or a place your grandma goes to after she dies. But Elder Bowen is here to give us the good news that says, no, heaven's here. And the work of heaven is here. And the work of angels is happening on a Tuesday afternoon in the world that you live in. I just feel so encouraged to just not think about taxes and traffic and, and just dumb things of this world. But this world has been crowned with the presence of God.
Yeah.
And the line he says, and it blesses all of his children, which means two things to me. One, you're included. Yeah. You're part of all. The angels in the miracles in the power of heaven were designed and destined for you and for your circumstances in life, whatever they may be. You're not out of reach and your problems are not too big. And it also teaches it's most seen when it's involving other people. It's experienced in its fuller measure when if you're a part of heaven's work, it's probably because you're reaching out to another person. I mean, The life of Jesus shows that to us.
Yeah.
The thing we're most fascinated by are the miracles he performed for another.
Yeah.
That's the thrill of heaven. Just changing someone else's life.
This talk is about miracles, angels, and priesthood power and God's continual ministry to us, how he's breaking into our world. And I think it's so important that we remember that Jesus on the cross, he cried out, Father, why hast thou forsaken me? He was separated from heaven, even though we deserved that, so that heaven could break into our lives.
Yeah.
He was left completely alone so we would never have to be. So his graceful hand, his watchful eye, his tender heart is over every aspect of our lives, blessing and healing and building.
And that's such good news. What a way to live. It's revival, baby.
Amen.
Okay, we'll see y'all next week.